And this stuff's all right on the table now.
Yeah, that's all fine. Yeah, they're both on. So if you want to have your slideshow on there. Yeah, thank you very much for coming to see us today, Alan. Chalky is the nickname, that's right, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the name.
So yeah, beautiful thing. So yeah, I just kind of want to start by saying thank you for coming. And yeah, where did your kind of love for cars begin, really? So before we get into too much about this particular car, where did it all begin?
Well, I've always been a petrol head. I think, you know, before I was 17, I was into cars. I think I bought my first car as a 16-year-old without a licence.
Yeah.
From a chap at work who was selling an MOT failure just to play with. But my first legal car on the road was a VW Beetle.
Nice, yeah.
1962. And you know, she was great fun. I didn't know anything about cars, so I learnt a lot. And in fact, you know, I'd say I know a fair amount about air-cooled cars. Air-cooled cars are my passion.
Yeah.
I don't know much about things with water pumps, I'm afraid.
No.
So consequently, we've ended up with several air-cooled Porsches and Volkswagens.
Yeah.
Which is my wife and I's passion. We actually met working in a garage, so it runs through our blood. My wife Jan was the parts delivery girl and I was the auto electrician.
Oh, lovely, okay.
Unfortunately, British Leyland cars, which weren't very good, but they were.
No, the reputation wasn't too high for that.
Yeah, so my first car was a Beetle and things went on from there. My wife and I actually went on our honeymoon in a 1965 split screen VW camper.
Beautiful.
We were going to drive to New Zealand in it, but unfortunately we found we were having our first son 3 months after we got married.
Oh wow.
So we sold the split screen for a profit. It cost £375 when we bought it and sold it for £450.
Oh nice. I bet you wish you still had it now though.
Yeah, we do.
Worth some serious money now.
I've looked her up, but she's no longer on the road, so
nice.
the rust worm.
Yeah.
But yeah, so air-cooled engines and tinkering with those vehicles. We had several VW campers, and it's gone on from there to the point where, having run my own business for 18 years and finally having a payout from it, we bought our first Porsche, which was a 1990 964.
Okay.
Which was great. At that time, you only would have them serviced by the garage, so Merlin Porsche on Hayden Road, as they were. Yeah. Looked after that, and after that I got a 993 Butte Iris Blue, 1996. But I was working that hard, I never, didn't drive her. So
you get to enjoy it.
15, 16 years of ownership. I think we did 14,000 miles.
Wow. And
one day I walked into the garage and thought, this is nonsense, it's become a garage queen, and she was kind of ruling our lives, and we never drove her and had to tiptoe around her. So I said to my wife, we'll sell her and we'll buy ourselves an older car, I didn't know what, that we can both go and do classic rallying in. So I sold the 993 just before the prices skyrocketed, of course.
And they haven't stopped doing that, have they?
No, it's a beautiful car, but and then I found Chalky, which was on eBay, up at a crazy price, which didn't sell. And I just sent the guy a message saying I'd be interested, and he said, well, come and have a look. Yeah. So we went to have a look, and she was everything the 993 wasn't. Noisy, vibrations, uncomfortable, smelly, but there's just something about her that I really felt, this would be a good investment. So we did a deal. Yeah. And in the advert there was a photo of Chalky as she was then. It turns out that the mountain range in the background is the Andes.
Alright, yeah. Beautiful.
And the only reason the elderly couple were selling her was that because she was a stage rally car. Yeah. So the roll cage goes across the door, and getting in and out became difficult for them because they were in the late 70s.
It looks quite challenging, I have to admit.
And so they were selling her, and it turned out they told us that they'd done several interesting marathon rallies, and that she was now set up as a marathon rally car, which I didn't know what that was really.
No.
So it turned out that they rallied her in 2010 completely around the Mediterranean, every
Yeah.
country except Israel.
Wow.
So that's, you know, through Libya. This is just before the Arab Spring, so they've gone through Libya, Algeria, and Egypt.
Wow. God.
And then in 2012, I'm looking because the stickers on the side I've got. In 2012, they rallied her from the top to the bottom of South America. So
Wow.
quite
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
But they decided that she would be sold, and they had a 993 RS that they'd acquired, so they're still keeping the faith. Anyway, I said I'd be really interested in those kind of rallies, and they said actually they may be running one more.
Okay.
And said, well, if they do, please consider us. And eventually I got an email from a chap saying, I understand you bought the white 911, and you could be welcome to come along, but you'll have to come for an interview.
Okay. Wow.
So okay, with my wife. Apparently this was to make sure we were compatible with the other people, because there would be 10 to 20 cars, so quite a lot of people, and being able to get on with everybody and mix was more important than anything else.
Yeah, that's good, yeah.
So we went for an interview and we were accepted, and that then led to us being able to do the Pan American Rally in 2016, which was 10 weeks, 10,000 miles, 27 states across the USA, starting in Los Angeles.
I didn't realise it was that long, yeah, God.
So it was quite an adventure.
Yeah.
And but in between that, my wife and I did to try and understand regularity rallying as well as the marathon. We did a rally quite naively in France, the Beaujolais Rally. So we turned up with no equipment, no knowledge. We didn't have a pen or a stopwatch or anything. We just went. And people were very kind. They loaned us a stopwatch and told us what to do, and follow a road book. And off we went. We didn't do very well. We made lots of mistakes, but it was such fun. Yeah. I used to race. I actually raced single seaters.
Oh, did you?
Formula V.
Oh wow. Okay.
Volkswagen engine.
Yeah.
Very cool. Did that for 10 years.
Amazing.
120 races. Great
fun.
fun.
To handle a car then.
In theory.
Yeah.
The reason I mention that is that when you do the tests and you're really on it, that was the nearest I ever got to that feeling of racing when your heart is literally jumping out of your chest. So
once you've had that feeling, you're always trying to find it again, aren't you, I suppose?
Yes, and the great thing is I could do it with my wife.
Yeah.
So the two of us can have great fun.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud to say that we actually won a rally. We won the inaugural Devon Classic.
Wow.
By 1 second over 2 days.
God.
And the only reason we won it, my wife says, is because I didn't interfere. I listened to her as opposed to
something my wife would say.
So because we won that, my wife said we could retire from competitive rallying at that point, but we have done two since.
Yeah, finish at the top.
So we did the Three Castles in North Wales as well, and but then we went on the Pan American Rally, which was a great adventure, more so than we expected, because a couple of days before we were due to arrive in Los Angeles, we got an email saying there'd been an accident with some of the shipping containers.
Wow.
Because there were 10 containers with 20 cars. And it turned out that one of the containers had been knocked off the top of a pile sideways.
Right, okay.
And had landed on an Arctic truck below it. My wife was in tears, and I was saying, don't worry, it won't be Chalky will be fine.
Yeah.
But it was.
As I was. Oh dear.
So we got there to find that customs people, that there was petrol and oil pouring out the container, so they covered it in foam and then wrapped it in cling film. So all the other people got their cars, but we couldn't have Chalky. And then eventually the shipping container turned up, and they opened the doors. The smell of petrol was terrible, and so the other side of the car there had literally smashed into the side of the container when it dropped. And because she has welded wishbones and welded pickup points and these foosh wheels which are so strong, and she was strapped to the floor, she smashed into the side of the container, which probably was only this far, but it meant that these two corners were held
nice and tight.
Yes, I didn't realise the significance of that until we pushed her out of the container, and it was a beautiful flat floor. And as I used to race and set my own car up, I kind of had a look at how because I thought she might be written off. It's not usable, but we pushed her forward, and you could hear the tyre noise on the paint. And it was even from both sides, and we pushed her forward, and she just went forward. So we found a local garage and stripped her apart. But when I drove her there, she was ticking over really fast, really fast tick over, and gear change wasn't good. So when we stripped her down, we found that because these two corners had been strapped, it had actually ripped the floor apart behind the pedals.
Found its weakest point, basically.
So the accelerator cable was stretched, and anyway, we cut a long story short. 4 days later, having smashed the door open and retrieved parts from the local scrap car to repair her, we drove out of Los Angeles late at night with Born to Be Wild on the stereo.
Very fitting.
On the expressway, and we had to drive, I think it was 800 odd miles to catch up the rally in Death Valley. So the two of us, were just so high on adrenaline to have got it back. And so we joined the rally, and we then went into Death Valley. It was 114 degrees F outside the car. And so that was, I could go on for ages about that, but it was a great adventure. We met lots of people. It was just prior to the first Trump election. But you meet people because you're in an unusual car. People come and talk to you. So
of course.
In the gas stations and in the hotels, we met lots of Americans, and we had a depot on the last day. So amongst all the entrants saying, well, who's going to win? Is it going to be Hillary or Trump? And the vast majority said it will be Trump. Because that's what people we met in the street seemed to like.
I've got a quick fascinating story of Donald Trump. I was actually in Chicago the year before he was a president, and I was in a hotel. I was working for a British para-triathlon at the time, and the hotel we stayed in, I was waiting outside of a lift, and there was people there with cameras outside of the lift. I thought, what's going on? And I thought maybe they were waiting for athletes or something like that. They were all staying in this hotel. And a guy walks out, and as I walk in, I sort of bumped into him, and I sort of looked, and I thought, I recognise that guy. And but I just couldn't, it just wasn't computing in my mind, And I went into the lift, and there was a woman in the lift that looked like she was having a bit of a panic attack. I was like, you okay? She was like, that was Donald Trump. And I'd literally walked straight into Donald Trump of the year after he was president. So a fascinating story of
good connections.
So sorry, carry on.
Yes. So we the next big rally, when she came back actually from America eventually, somehow they'd jammed her into 2 gears in the shipping people. And I had naively not insured her for enough for a rebuild by a professional, because of course it might have a car has a value, a classic car as it exists, but the cost of completely rebuilding it was double what I'd insured her for. So unfortunately I couldn't really afford for that to be done. It was suggested to me by the specialist that we take all the major components off and put them in an 80s shell. But I said, no, this car has to survive. It's 1969. It's a Tuttle prepared car, so it has lots of, it's done properly for marathon rallying. So I said, no, I'll take her away. So we took her away and stripped her, and I found a really good local specialist here in Nottingham who rebuilt the body with my help. I was able to put lots of improvements onto her at that time as well, having driven her a lot, knowing what we wanted to make her better for us, more suitable. And so it took a year, to put her back together and get all the improvements in place. And that then prepared us to go in 2018 to the Vietnam to Myanmar and back rally, which was 6 countries, 6,000 miles. So it was South Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, Laos, Myanmar, and then back and through into North Vietnam. So 6,000 miles over nearly 6 weeks. Again, an incredible experience. I would say it's the most incredible experience of our lives.
Yeah, really.
Very humbling. Ladies repairing the road with hot tarmac and grit in flip-flops.
You see what really goes on in the world, don't you, with things like that.
We were able to go into, because of the chap who organised the rally had his wife is from Burma, from Myanmar, and her brother was involved in the then government. And so we got special permission to go to areas which were really not accessible. So it was more of a unique experience than we ever realised. We met what were called the Silver Palong people, of which if you look on the internet there are only a couple of photos of this tribe who wear silver around their waist. We actually got to meet dozens of them and took hundreds of photos, and the great thing is they don't know this is a special car, a valuable car. They're just these odd long noses, as they call us out there, turned up and driving through. And so it was about meeting the people, not about.
Well, I suppose you'll see these countries in a way that most, 99% of tourists would never see it, aren't you? It's,
It's
you're
very
really
true.
getting into the depths of it all, and it's fascinating.
Yes, so it was incredible. We went right up in the North Vietnam, right by the Chinese border. Where the internet suddenly didn't work because of the influence of China. We went up in a hot air balloon over Inle Lake in Myanmar. We went, to Angkor Wat. We actually crossed the Cardamom Mountains, and the year before, a 4x4 rally got into trouble. It had to be helped, but we were fortunate with the weather, and so the brown dust is still inside the car, and the clothes that we were wearing
And the crevices
still have a brown tinge.
Yeah.
But we got across the Cardamom Mountains, which was just epic. Wonderful experience. And we, on these rallies we would stay in 5-star hotels, which were fantastic, but we'd also stay in some very, very basic accommodation. I remember one place we went to bed and I looked up at the ceiling and thought that's a really interesting pattern on the ceiling. And I looked up again a bit later and the pattern had changed, and I realised it was actually covered in ants.
Oh wow! Okay.
So it was all just so exciting, so full of adrenaline.
That's the experience, wasn't it?
Yes, and you'd be driving, anything from say 150 miles to 500 miles in a day. Not on that rally, but in the States you would on better roads. But sometimes it would take you 3 hours to do just 6 or 7 miles because of the tracks that were literally falling away.
So on things like that, if you say you're in the middle of nowhere and something was catastrophically wrong with the car, is there anything in place to deal with that, like as part of the organisation, or have you got to organise that?
No, as a part of the rally, those particular rallies, there's a doctor and a mechanic.
Right, okay.
So there are two, on all of those marathon rallies, there's one car goes out in the morning before anybody else. And that is, and we had walkie-talkies and satellite phones. So we're able to, because you can't rely on the local network for communication. And so the first car would go out with the doctor in it, and the last car would go with the mechanic. And consequently, you are covered in terms of health and
Yeah.
the car.
Yeah, cool.
I'm proud to say that she has never let us down.
No.
There's been a couple of self-inflicted issues
Yeah.
that I've caused, but we've been able to fix those, and so she's never really had the mechanic.
No.
You get an award for if actually a mechanic doesn't have to lay a spanner on it.
Oh, okay.
That's
cool. Yeah.
we certainly qualified for that on one of the rallies.
Brilliant.
I know her pretty well, and I have to say that the air-cooled, this is a 2.4,
Yeah.
the air-cooled engine and gearbox, and it's a special Tuthill 915 gearbox with limited slip differential and the right gearing, and it's strengthened. So, touch wood, she's fairly bulletproof from that point of view.
And it did have a different engine in at one point, is that right? So
Yes, I have been trying to trace her history, because although we didn't know it and the previous owners actually didn't know it. She was sold by Bonhams in '98, I think,
Okay.
at an auction and she was blue then, because she was originally a blue car, and as a rally car, which was bought by a couple of guys who then started to do stage rallies. So they did the Manx Rally. I think they did some rounds of the European Historic Rally Championship
Yeah.
in her, and they did London to Sydney.
Okay.
And with a 2.7 engine that she had at that point, apparently, because it wasn't period for the age, they had to change it out to a 2.4, which they could just get away with.
Okay. Yeah.
And in fact, Tuthill had chosen that engine. This is an 2.4E engine, which has the E heads, which gives you more torque.
Okay.
She produces about 180 horsepower on the rolling road. It's got two triple choke Webers.
Yeah.
Of course, the classic setup.
It sounds beautiful as well. It's
Yes, it's in the standard stainless exhaust, but it sounds good. Yes.
Yeah.
So she was set up that way, and those guys. I eventually made contact with them. The navigator sent me a very nice email detailing what they'd done. So as I say, they did the London to Sydney. They did the Barbados Rally Festival twice.
okay.
So they had a nice holiday, and they did very well. Actually, in London to Sydney, they were 5th on the next to last day of the rally when there was an engine fire, which demoted them to 50th.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, so she's pretty competitive to be 5th overall. And they did pretty well in the Barbados festivals, I think, coming 2nd in class. They also did the Manx Rally, and so that she went around with them as a proper stage rally car. And Tuthill's then, I think, sold them to a chap who was just getting into rallying.
Yeah.
So he then did some of the European historic rallies with her. But he then wanted something a bit more competitive, so we ended up with selling her to the people we bought her from, who then had her softened up a little bit, for the marathon rallies.
Yeah, sure.
So she has the capability and strength and safety. She withstood that impact I talked about without bending the chassis. Just the floor and all of that side had to be replaced. But so she's very strong. So that history is quite incredible. But I could never make contact with the original owners.
No. Okay.
But then, by a quirk of fate, I happened to mention to somebody about them, and they knew them, somebody in the rallying world, and I've made contact with them. And they lived in Florida. They're American. They lived in Florida, and in the 80s, they had her converted into a rally car in the States.
Okay.
Not very well, although I think there were a few issues from what I've been told subsequently.
Right.
But they moved to the UK to work here, and they brought several cars with them. They had a 356 and a 911. This belonged to the lady, and she rallied her in South America, it turns out, and they did then they did London to Mexico.
Oh wow.
A rally, and then they did Ivory think it's called the Ivory Coast Rally. I'm not quite remember, but basically a rally around Africa.
Okay.
So the incredible thing is that she's been around to all of those places. They also did one that Liège to Istanbul.
Okay.
So they did several exotic rallies before that. So you can see why her history is so important that she survives and continues. Then eventually they sold her and at the auction, which is that completes the story. So I've been sent some amazing photos of those rallies. A photo of her being loaded into an aircraft.
You showed me that earlier. It's phenomenal, isn't it?
To go off to South America. Great photos in Africa. We've got photos of her all over the world. On the American rally, we went up Pikes Peak, which although it's a motorsport venue, is a public road. But we were the quickest car going up, even though we're not supposed to be. And my wife deserves the medal because basically she was next to the drop most of the time. Because although it's tarmac and his arm fell on the hairpins, there's nothing in between.
No.
So
I've seen some footage up there and it looks you don't want to make a mistake up there, that's for sure.
As we went up, we went past after we'd been going for 10, 15 minutes. We went past a sign that said 1 mile to go.
Okay.
Fair enough. And that's 1 mile up. Not 1 mile in distance.
No.
So,
because people get altitude sickness up there and stuff, don't they, as well?
Well, we got to the top and jumped out of the car full of elation, absolutely, and adrenaline, and then I realised I couldn't breathe. So I've been, driving, and because the air was so thin, I was actually having to go down into first gear in the really slow hairpins. Because if I put it into second and floored it, she just
couldn't pull the air through.
It's because the air was so thin. So got to the top, and couldn't breathe. And then, interestingly, for safety, as you come down through the national park, they stop you halfway and they put a non-contact parameter onto the brakes.
Okay.
To see how on the disc to see how hot it is, and if you're over a certain temperature, they put you to one side because you're in danger of boiling the brake fluid. So we did get the accolade. The lady, when she did it, she said, "Oh, hottest of the day."
Oh, really? Wow.
And only 5 degrees below the limit.
Oh, wow.
So,
keep going.
Yes. We also went to Mount Washington, which was incredible, which is a hill climb venue in the States. And we did Tail of the Dragon, so I've got some great photos.
Very influential area.
So I ran cameras front and back and put a GoPro on the front for that one, so I've got some nice footage.
I watch a lot of footage of that road. It looks, absolutely phenomenal. It really does.
There were some stickers on the car, it's called Deal's Gap, for some reason, so that we've got that on there. Yes, so, and then my wife and I did a midnight sun rally, which takes you through Norway, Finland and Sweden. Actually, Sweden, Finland and Norway. And, in 2019, so that was the Midnight Sun Rally, which was again great fun. And so just astounding experiences, great driving from. My wife is now able to drive the car. When we first got her, she had the Sparco rally seats, which weren't adjustable, so I made a kind of booster seat for her, which we had to carry with us. Which was never very easy or comfortable for her, and she's a great driver. So before we went to Myanmar, I purchased some 997 18-way adjustable sports seats.
That should do the trick,
And they're very heavy. I mean, there's 22 kilos each, but I modified them so we could have the harness coming through the back because that wasn't included. But the great thing then is that we can easily adjust them. They're very comfortable, and believe it or not, I had to make lots of special brackets to get them in, but literally fitted by 10 millimeters. So it took a bit of a punt on it, but they do fit in. And it ended up, now my wife can easily adjust the position because we've got lots of height adjustments.
Yeah.
so she's able to drive as well. That's great.
Easy for the distances, I'm guessing as well. I mean,
Very comfortable.
Yeah.
And you know, when it's really hot, I think when we were in Thailand, I had an internal external temperature gauge, and it was 44 degrees outside, 44 degrees inside when we came back to the car one day.
God.
So now I've got two cooling fans in the roof onto our heads.
Oh nice.
I've
Yeah,
got
I can see
there
that.
are marine fans I put in both of the front wings going to these intakes, which have standard ladies stocking material as a filter over the front. And they blow out the dash onto us both, and then we have a marine fan in the footwell down over our feet. So as long as we're moving with all the opening quarter lights, we're able to
Keeps you, comfortable.
yes, it's fine, but it's just when you stop in traffic. I also have because she doesn't have being a 69, there's no oil cooler at the front. They only came with an internal oil cooler in the engine at that point. But there is an additional one which was fitted by the first owners, which is behind the engine. But when we were in Death Valley, interestingly, when we joined the rally, I said that we went to catch it up. And as we drove towards this T-junction, I saw the final car of the rally drive by. And this was outside of Death Valley. So I said to my wife, well, we're never going to be here again.
No.
So why don't we go the wrong way and let's go over into Death Valley just to have a look. So we did. So we turned right and we started to climb, and it was, like I said, 114 degrees F. I'm not sure what that is in C, but
No, I'm not. It's hot. I know that.
and of course, what I didn't think about was that being a valley, it has to have a mountain range to go over. So we're climbing and climbing and climbing, and I'm watching the oil temperature gauge, which is coming up and up and up. So it's up to 260 because it's in F. It's American cars. So 260 F, 270, 280.
It starts to get a bit worrying.
And the oil pressure's dropping. Finally, we got to the top. So I thought, okay, so we literally coasted down the other side. And then my wife said, "Isn't that the support vehicle?" And the Toyota Land Cruiser with the mechanic in it was broken down up the side of the road. So we swung round and the alternator had failed. So we ended up having to run an air-cooled car with an overheating engine with jump leads to charge his battery up, because there was no mobile signal, the walkie-talkies didn't work, and we didn't have satellite phones on the American rally because you don't need them.
You're having to
so we rescued them, so we had to stop 3 times to do that. So when we rejoined the rally, we were celebrities for getting the car going. And we were the newbies, of course, and also we were heroes for rescuing the...
Decided to take a diversion and save the mechanic.
So she's a keeper. She'll definitely, she'll never go anywhere. It means so much to us.
How can you let something like that go? You just couldn't. It's part of your personality, isn't it? Almost. It's it's.
Yeah, we've put lots of our special. I mean, the roof rack is the special one I made up because when we were doing a rally in Africa ourselves, which just at the start of COVID. So in the February before the first lockdown, we loaded her up into a container to go to Africa. And unfortunately, because of COVID, she went to Cape Town in the container ship and came back without being unloaded. But for that rally, we had to have 2 spare tyres. So I made modified 2 stainless steel roof racks into one, so we could get 2 tyres on the top. So that's why she's got a special roof rack. Because in the front here, where the tyre would go, there's lots of spares. Carried everything that I can think of. We've had to use, we did overheat the oil. We cooked the oil in Death Valley, so no oil pressure. So the next day, or that night actually, outside the foyer of a 5-star hotel, we put a tarpaulin down because it was well lit, and jacked her up and changed the oil. And I learned a bit about that then because the sump guard had no hole to get access to the drain plug. So we had to take all the sump guard off, and then we get underneath. There is no drain plug. just the complete plate.
Okay.
So of course, as you can imagine, it now has a hole in the sump guard, and it has a plug with a sump plate with a drain plug in.
Yeah, sure.
But we changed the oil, and then the oil pressure came back, and she's been fine ever since. So although I got to the limit of the oil, the engine was thankfully
it's kept going.
not damaged. Yeah.
Well, it shows how fantastically well built they are, doesn't it? And obviously with the maintenance and everything that's been put into it, it's look. I mean,
Well, when when it does get really hot, I have a modification, and I made after which is basically a hose pipe, two pieces of hose pipe I acquired.
Yeah.
So I Jubilee clipped those in the back, and then basically had an engine stay to push the engine open.
Yeah. Okay.
And I carry those with me, and then whenever we go to a really hot climate, I'll open the back up, and that drops the oil temperature by about 15 degrees F.
Yeah.
So
Which can be everything sometimes, can't it? Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of there's a lot of weight at the front because obviously I carry a full tool set
Yeah.
and all the spares that I can. And because of the position of the fuel tank and the battery, and she's obviously stripped out,
Yeah.
the weight distribution is something like 52-48.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it's very, very well balanced.
That's
And
amazing.
we've done a lot of work with centre gravity.
Yeah.
Chris and Pete over there, and Ollie, they're fantastic.
Yeah. I keep meaning to take my 911 to them, but yeah, there are a lot of good things about them.
They're amazing people, and they've done so much more for me than just sort out this. They rescued us and helped us sort it out, because after I'd rebuilt it, there were a few things that weren't right, and at the last minute they got us in, and they really saved the day.
Yeah.
Made the ride so much more acceptable to go on a long rally.
Yeah.
But after that, because we were doing the African one, I wanted to raise her up. You know, she's probably about 70 mil higher than you normally see. And because she's an F-body car, you can't buy the parts off the shelf. All of this, I mean, Safari now is a kind of style,
Yeah. Sure.
and a lot of people are making them look like this.
It's become quite popular, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Porsche
Porsche
released
themselves.
one. Yeah.
You know, and rough, and everybody else is doing that.
Yeah.
But you can't buy the parts off the shelf, so Chris, in particular at Centre Gravity, really worked hard with me to, so we made extensions for the existing standard Bilsteins,
Yeah.
had them modified at the front and back, and raised her up. But she didn't have any anti-roll bars,
Okay.
so it's been quite a journey to get her to handle. Well, obviously the centre gravity is higher, so she doesn't handle as well as she did when she was
No.
much lower, and she's got narrower wheels on now. They're now 6-inch wheels.
Yeah.
With more robust tyres, so there's a much higher sidewall to move.
Yeah.
But so after we'd raised her up, it was exciting to drive her for the first time, but mid-corner, when you were pushing, there was a lurch, which was really scary.
Yeah. I kind of folded over a bit. Yeah.
I'm not sure, we weren't sure what was happening, but she didn't have anti-roll bars
Yeah.
as a rally car. Rally cars of this age don't have anti-roll bars, so you've got full travel without upsetting the car.
Yeah.
So we decided we'd have to fit them, so we got some Elephant Racing anti-roll bars.
Okay.
And we fitted those, but tuning those was quite a challenge, because there's no rule book, there's no info sheet to go and look at, and we had to literally
no, they're not supposed to be there, are they? So it's just not designed for it. So
So after a few, Chris again at Centre Gravity really did a great job, and then with some input from me, we finally got to the point now where she handles very, very well. I'm quite surprised, but she's got all the travel.
Yeah.
Bilstein did a special version of the standard shock absorber, so we can still fit a standard shock absorber housing.
Yeah.
And take the extensions, and I do carry inserts for the front as a standard spare.
Yeah.
And of course, if I carry them,
Yeah.
I won't need them.
Exactly. That's the way to do it. Yeah.
So we have an alternator. The support vehicle will carry one box of spares, so some of the very cumbersome items like an alternator are in there.
Yeah. Sure.
And extra oil and that kind of thing, but if we were on our own, to fix it, then all the standard stuff and spares are in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's something very special, and we're dedicated to keeping her. My wife and I are off at the end of next month. We are doing another Scandinavian rally. The long haul rallies, one of the significant cost of them is of course sending the cars in a container.
Sure, which has gone up a lot recently. Yeah,
yes. Apparently it's coming down now, but we've chosen not to do. We're doing rallies now that we can drive to. So at the end of August, we're driving to Oslo. Two overnight ferries. It starts in Oslo, and then we'll drive back afterwards. So we're away for nearly 4 weeks. Three countries.
Visit. Yeah, I'd love to go there.
Yes, Norway is astounding. And, we've made some amazing friends on these rallies, who've become very close friends. Who we have this shared interest.
Yeah. When you do something like that together, I mean, you create a bond that's very different to, you know what I mean? It's that car community, isn't it? And especially with cars like this, the passion for cars like this is deep in your blood, isn't it? You can't ever let that go. I think I always say to people, once you buy a Porsche, it'll always be in your blood, It's especially when it's stuff like this, because
they're amazing things to drive, aren't they? The 911 is something very special in particular, because it's air cooled. Because, as I said earlier, when I bought my first 964, you took it to Porsche, and anything in there was off limits, really.
Yeah, exactly.
But the world's changed now, and I mean they are really a Beetle. But Beetle principles, but very strong, engineered quite differently.
The engineering is what sets these apart, isn't it? Yeah,
that's right. But you can, within reason, engine. I would never rebuild the engine on gearbox. That's too specialist. That would go back to Titanium. But anything else, I've been able to change. So, as it said in the eBay advert, this car can make your dreams come true.
Yeah.
And she has.
Sounds like it has, and it sounds like it'll continue to do so as well, which is great to see. It's a phenomenal looking thing, it really is. And I mean, if you wanted to, perhaps bring the camera over and you could show some of the little features inside.
Yeah.
And go from there,
Yeah, with pleasure.
Thank you so much, Alan.